Hey y'all, if you are someone that is in the stage of life where you are baby wearing a lot, that probably also means that you still have a postpartum body that is healing from being pregnant and going through labor and delivery with that baby. And those two things combined, I have seen cause a lot of women trouble with pain or pelvic floor dysfunction. And so today I want to talk about some things that you can do to decrease pain and protect your pelvic floor and protect your healing body while you're in that stage of life where you are wearing that baby sometimes for hours and hours at a time. Before we get into it, my name's Amanda. I'm a doctor of physical therapy and a pelvic floor physical therapist who specializes in all things pregnancy and postpartum. And this is a topic that I have helped basically every single one of my postpartum patients in my physical therapy practice work through and decrease symptoms while they are baby wearing. And so the tips that I'm sharing with you today are tips that have helped real people in real life overcome pain and especially pelvic floor problems while needing to baby wear. The first tip I want to talk about is just checking what baby carrier you are using to wear your baby. So whatever the carrier or the wrap is that you're using, we want to make sure that it's something that really holds baby super snug against your body, and then especially one that isn't just getting looser and looser over time as your baby wearing. So almost every baby carrier or wrap on the market is going to accomplish that goal of hugging baby really close to you, especially if you are wearing an infant. But the problem comes in when you're using something, or maybe you didn't put it on super correctly, or you didn't have the right straps pulled or the right tuck at the right time, and that carrier is getting a little bit looser over time, because the more that baby's weight is transferred away from your body, the longer the lever arm is getting on your body. And so that can make us do some really funky posture patterns, put a lot of strain onto especially your low back and sometimes your mid back, and just causes us to do some things that can bring on a lot of pain, and then especially some pelvic floor symptoms like heaviness or pressure down into that pelvic floor, or even just increase the amount that you are having bladder control issues when you cough or sneeze or get up and down from a chair or whatever that might look like for you. So make sure you check with what you're using to wear your baby. Make sure that when it starts out, it's nice and snug. It holds baby nice and snug against your body, and that after a little bit of time of wearing it, it stays snug and it's not loosening up over time. If it's loosening up over time, we might need to do some troubleshooting and make sure that you are using it correctly, or we might need to try a different baby wrap or a different baby carrier. The next thing that I want you to pay attention to while you're baby wearing is where your weight distribution is on your feet. So if you are wearing baby while standing, most likely that's what you're doing, because usually we're baby wearing because we need our hands because we are doing something, but baby wants to be held or have a contact nap, and we're trying to multitask. So if you're standing while you're wearing baby, I want you to see where your weight is distributed. A lot of women end up, once we have that anterior load of baby against us and in the carrier, instead of staying nice and solid over your full foot, it feels so much easier to do a little bit of a lean back and a weight transfer into your heels as a way to counter the weight of baby. But what that does is, one, it creates a hinge point in your back. There's a very specific hinge point that I can see on women and almost immediately predict that, one, that's what they were probably doing during pregnancy as their belly grew more and more and we got more and more of that anterior or that front load. And two, it tells me that they're probably still doing it while carrying or wearing baby. And so that hinge point in the back is a cause of a lot of back pain, even if your pain isn't right at that hinge point, which most of the time it is, but sometimes it's a little bit above or a little bit below the hinge point. But if we can just get the hinge point out of there and get your spine back to that comfy stacked position that it wants to be in, then that pain tends to dissipate and take care of itself. The other thing that happens when you transfer your weight, especially if you're transferring it to your heels, you're unstacking your blocks, you're unstacking your system in a way that makes it so that your core and your pelvic floor are no longer set up to automatically support support you and to automatically manage pressure. And when we talk about that heaviness or that pressure down into pelvic floor, or that problem with incontinence that you might be having with coughing, sneezing, or doing activities around the house, that in itself is a pressure management problem. And so that core is still healing, your pelvic floor is still healing, and all of that might be true, but that's even more of a reason that we want to make sure that we keep the system set up in a way to protect those healing tissues and to set them up to be able to do their jobs a lot more easily, because there's some weakness in the system still. So what I want you to pay attention to instead is your tripod foot. The tripod foot is the ball of your big toe, the ball of your little toe, and your heel. So it makes that tripod, and what we want is our body weight to be very centered over our tripod foot. And when we center over our tripod foot, what we're doing is setting up our pressure management system to keep doing its job in the background automatically, which is important no matter what, but it's especially important while we have a load on our system that comes with baby wearing. And that can really help to decrease a lot of the pelvic floor symptoms that you might get while you're baby wearing, if that's something that you're dealing with. It also helps your core to be able to support you, which is going to help with that back pain, hip pain, whatever sort of pain is coming with baby wearing. So it's kind of like two birds, one stone, but we just want to make sure that we aren't counteracting the weight that comes with baby wearing. We want to make sure that we're staying nice and stacked and then letting our muscles come in and handle that load of baby instead of just thinking that we have to counter the weight. If you want to learn more about what I mean when I say stacking or posture, setting up your core and your pelvic floor to do their jobs well and to do it on their own, that's a big piece of what's in my new free webinar. It is a 1-hour online free core and pelvic floor class that goes much more in depth into that, plus a lot of other things you can do to feel more supported in your core and your pelvic floor and set those muscles up to do their jobs. If you're interested in learning more about that, the link to sign up and get access to that free class is in the description of this video. The next thing that I want you to pay attention to while you're baby wearing is, whenever possible, because I know this isn't always possible, but whenever possible, I want you to take breaks before your body tells you that you need a break. So in any other situation, you're probably so used to listening to your body and taking a break, not just with baby wearing, but if you're like on a long hike or you're exercising or you're working out, you're waiting, you're pushing yourself and pushing yourself and pushing yourself until you can't anymore. And then you're like, okay, I need to take a break before I can get back at it. I want you to remember that you have a healing body, you have a healing core, and you have a healing pelvic floor and a healing system. And so what we really need in this stage is to take breaks before you get the signal that you need it, and that signal might look like pain or pelvic floor problems, heaviness, pressure, all of those things. And so I want you to be a little bit more aware and think, I've been baby wearing for a while, and even though I still feel good right now, I know this is like longer than normal, so let me see if I can take a little bit of a break for whatever that looks like, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, if that's all you can get in before baby needs to go back on your body again. But if there's any chance for you to, in the middle of what you're doing, take a break from baby wearing before your body actually sends you the signal that you need to take a break, then that is going to help you in the long run be able to wear baby for a lot longer without getting pain and without getting symptoms. What this also serves as is a way for you to slowly build up endurance with baby wearing, because if we baby wear until the point that we're already symptomatic, now there's really nothing we can do. Now it's too late, because from here on out for the rest of the day, all of the other minutes that you need to baby wear for, it's just not going to feel good. Whereas if we take those breaks before we actually need them, then we're building up strength and we're building up endurance and resiliency to handle that anterior load of baby wearing, so that over time you have to take less and less breaks. And it's almost helping to build some resiliency back into the body when we take those breaks before we feel like we need it. One thing that you can watch for to know when it's time to take a break, even though your body isn't telling you that you need to yet, is your stacking. So if you were really good at making sure you didn't weight shift, you stayed over your whole foot, you feel like your rib cage is stacked really well over your pelvis, you're not hinging back at that hinge point and everything feels very stacked on top of your full foot, but then you start to check in with your body after 30 minutes or 45 25 minutes of baby wearing and it's getting harder and harder to stay stacked, then that can be a sign that your system is fatiguing and it's not really able to handle the load in an efficient way or in a safe way for your body anymore. So now's a good time to see if you can give your body a little bit of a break, let it recover a little bit, and then we can go back to baby wearing. And that is just a way that just gives you something tangible that you can look for on your body, because we want to take a break before we feel pain and before we have symptoms. It just gives you something else that you can watch for instead. The fourth thing is kind of like a bonus that I want you to make sure that you're thinking about. It's not necessarily something to do differently or to watch for while you're baby wearing, but outside of baby wearing, I want to make sure that you are working on building back in your foundational strength. And this is something that you'll hear me talk about that every postpartum woman deserves and needs to do for herself. And it creates this resiliency against pain. It creates this resiliency against pain and against dysfunction when we make sure that we take the time to undo some of the weird patterns that develop during pregnancy that isn't going to serve us anymore now that we are postpartum, to build back in foundational control and automatic strength that comes from our core and our pelvic floor, to build back in good automatic patterns like how we stack ourselves, how we breathe, how we hip hinge, how we move, and then to slowly strengthen that with progressive overload exercises over time, making sure that we retrain those patterns really well. And the more that you're doing that progressively over time, the better and better you're gonna feel for something like baby wearing or simply just carrying your kiddos. Like, think about having a toddler, which some of you might be in the baby wearing and toddler stage at the same time. I work with lots of patients who are in that stage as well. When you have a toddler who wants to be held, who's having a meltdown, who's having a day, and they want to be held, but you still have things to do, being able to do things with correct body mechanics goes out the window. We can have this like gold standard, this is how you should move your body, this is how you should lift something heavy, this is how you should go up and down a set of stairs, whatever that looks like. But when you have a 30-pound toddler that you need to be carrying around and you can't do things in exact perfect body mechanics that we wish we could coach moms to do, but it's just not realistic, then what we really need is strength and resiliency in the system. And that's what comes with rebuilding some of these foundational patterns that I'm talking about. And so if that is something that you are like, I've never even heard of that, I don't really know what you're talking about, but I would like to learn more. Again, that's a little bit of what I talk about in that free webinar or that new free core and pelvic floor class that I was talking about. So check the link in the description of this video. And I go into depth about what does it mean to start to use your core the right way again. We talk about stacking, we talk about gripping patterns that we want to get rid of, and we talk about some things that you can do for next steps. So if you're interested in that, it is called 3 things that you can start doing now to strengthen your core and your pelvic floor. And again, it's a free 1-hour class that you can watch at any time, so you can grab access to it in the link in the description. That's all I have for you today. I hope that was helpful if you were in that baby wearing stage. I know it can be a brutal one, but also a so sweet one. So I hope that this helps you to feel comfortable wearing your baby and enjoying those sweet times and those sweet snuggle times without dealing with pain or pelvic floor dysfunction that nobody wants to deal with. I will see you guys next week.